thank you for joining us. But firstly, it would be great if we could just get a little bit of an overview of both you and Telsight and what you guys do.
Thank you for having me today, Lauren. Telsight has been around for about 20 years. We're an emerging technology analyst firm. And what we do is market research with small businesses, with consumers and large businesses, and try and understand the adoption of technology and the trends that relate to the adoption of technology.
Ever since the pandemic started, we've obviously seen SMEs basically take the hardest hit, and that's whether that's lack of consistency or supply chain issues. What have you seen the biggest tech challenges being for those businesses having to embrace this new world that we've all been in?
I think there's two areas that came up in the research, Lauren. First of all, the inability to deliver services, which is understandable given the lockdowns and the inability of customers to get around like they would in the past. And I think in addition to that, sort of attracting new clients, bringing new customers into the business in a harrowing time is quite difficult. I think to combat these challenges, SMEs have invested in technology as well. So around 1 in 3 invested in technology during this period to support contactless workforce or contactless customer service, or indeed engaging with customers in a digital way. What we think is that the investment happened primarily to support employees in the first instance, in the rush of the pandemic that we saw, whether it's through video conferencing and other technologies. But as it progressed, businesses really saw the need to continue to invest in areas of customer engagement that they'd already maybe on that path for, but really accelerated that over the last few months.
Yeah, so they're the main things that you think are important for businesses to be successful in this digital transformation, or what do you think is the main sort of criteria that they need to focus on?
I think it's really interesting because every business is going to be at a different stage of transformation, and I think what we're seeing is that the majority of businesses that have already had to think about transformation and where they're headed have really been investing in things to prevent future disruptions, all about being able to handle anything that happens in the future that might be like another pandemic or a continuation of the pandemic. So I think businesses are about reinforcing their infrastructure and making sure that they've got those digital approaches to business that are going to help them regardless of the operating environment.
Yeah, and from your research, have you sort of seen SMEs are starting to invest more in those remote and digital tools to support their customers better, or to even obtain those leads from different sources?
I think it goes without saying that digital tools have become indispensable when it comes to small businesses in the last 12 months, and indeed a trend that's been happening for the last few years. I think particularly cloud-based tools and the ability to access systems, customers, accounts, all types of information remotely or at any location has become critical, not just for some businesses, but really all businesses.
Yeah, we've seen it really accelerate digital transformation, haven't we?
Indeed, indeed. Look, I don't think it's an option anymore for businesses. I think, yes, some normal life will return for small businesses once the pandemic is completely past its worst part. But I think some of these tools are going to become critical going forward as well, particularly for attracting new customers, as I mentioned.
So obviously we've seen an abundance of cloud adoption, but obviously that also brings in a lot of risks. So what do you see the biggest risks being for small businesses? And do you think the awareness of those risks is actually out there?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a real threat out there. Almost 40% of businesses we spoke to say that disruption to their business is their biggest concern when it comes to cybersecurity. So inability to actually deliver your services, systems being down, infrastructure being down, they're the things that businesses really worry about. I think a third of them are also saying that they've also got a huge concern about how they deal with the risks associated with cybersecurity. So I think this, along with any loss of revenue that goes with downtime, present huge challenges
Yeah.
for businesses when it comes to cybersecurity.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, obviously, we've seen a lot out there that Australia is at a substantial risk of cybersecurity threats, but we can see it's a huge challenge. What do you think are the biggest challenges for those small businesses in terms of ensuring everything is secure?
It's a difficult one because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So there could be new threats, there could be new issues with operating systems or the like.
Yeah.
I think around 30% of businesses have experienced a data breach. So I think that's the area where most businesses are going to be focused on in the short term, ensuring that their data is secure, unable to be breached, and indeed not impacting their business and its operation.
Yeah, I guess education really is one of the most important things here, isn't it?
Correct. I guess education of employees is critical. The understanding of phishing and spear phishing attacks and how they might affect the business. All of this is really important for small businesses. And I think there's a lot of good available tools today in terms of e-learning and online learning for employees. And I think most small businesses should invest a bit of time in ensuring that they have the recent knowledge when it comes to cybersecurity and how to protect their employees.
So obviously Zoho has a pretty strong stance on privacy ourselves. You know, we have our own data centers and there's no ads, we don't sell data. It's something that we take very, very seriously. So what do you also recommend that SMEs take into consideration when they're choosing cloud tech?
I think it's really admirable the stance that Zoho is taking
Thank you.
towards data, and I think it aligns itself very closely to the ways a lot of small businesses feel about their customer data and indeed how they treat their
Yeah.
customers. Do they want to advertise to them in particular ways, follow them around the internet, be in their inboxes on a regular basis? Look, sometimes yes, but I think when it comes down to it, having a system that allows for the flexibility to be able to turn on and off those things is going to be important in terms of choice going forward for many small and medium-sized businesses.
So as an industry analyst, Fawad, what would you recommend that SMEs look for when choosing cloud tech?
Look, I think it's like any technology. There's a number of criteria that's really important to keep in mind. I think first and foremost, the security features, the level of security of the product, the confidence you might have in the security of the product is really important.
Yeah.
I think secondly is the cost analysis. There's a lot of offerings available on the market, and I think having a good sense of what the total cost is when you add up all the functions and features that's required to operate the application is really important. So a like-for-like comparison wherever possible. I think the other aspect to it that we talk about a lot is the user interface. You know, making sure that it's easy to use and indeed encouraging
Absolutely.
use of the features. Now, that's one of the biggest things. People get applications and only use a tiny slither of the application. And often this is because it's quite difficult or it's a bit scary in terms of how to go about doing something. So it's really important to have that hands-on time and get familiar with the application, but also the application itself being easier to use makes a big difference in the long run. Last but not least, I think it's really important to look at training and the support that an application can give you, because there is often a learning curve involved with technology, any kinds of technology. So overcoming some of those limited skills that you might have in-house and how you can improve your business by using that application, but not necessarily having to add headcount, for example, to be able to use that application is another area that I think is important to look at.